Good morning and welcome, everyone. I am so honored to be the featured presenter for this month's South Florida Writers Association meeting. Thank you very much to the SFWA for having me, and I am greeting you from sunny San Diego, California. As Jonathan mentioned, I have moved, but South Florida writers and South Florida in general is dear to me. So we're going to talk about marketing today. I do own a company, as Jonathan mentioned, Madweek Marketing LLC. I've represented a number of clients, either global brands, corporate, small businesses, nonprofits, and of course, authors. And we're going to be talking about author marketing today. And if you, depending on where you are in your writing process, I'm hoping that this can set you up for success. So you could be just starting a manuscript, maybe you finished one and you are working with an editor, maybe you're pitching literary agents, maybe you have self-published a couple of books and you're working on your next one. Whatever it is, I want you to think in terms of setting yourself up for success, because everybody has their own desire and picture of what success looks like for them. So, some people want to be famous and be on the New York Times bestseller list. Some of us just want our work out there. They just want to publish and write for a specific audience. Whatever it is that you want, think about that and think of how your individual marketing and branding can help you, okay? So, I'm going to share my screen now because I prepared some pretty pictures for us to look at. Here we are. Introduction to social media marketing. Before we get started into this presentation, I want to jump back a little to your manuscript. Okay, so let's say that you finished a manuscript. It's your first draft. As most of us know, the first draft is never pretty. We always need to work on it, but congratulations if you have finished your first draft of your manuscript. It's huge. So, but now what? What do we do next? Well, you're not done yet. And I'm going to just mention a few things that you need to do if you don't already know this. But you really need, after you finish that first draft, you need to have other people read your work. I can't stress that enough. And it's terrifying to have people other than your spouse or your, best friend or your mom read your work and have some opinions about it that maybe are not what you want to hear, or, hopefully they're always constructive. I have to give a shout out to the SFWA for critique groups, because critique groups are the first step to getting people to read your work and tell you what they think. So when I was looking for a critique group, that's how I found SFWA. And I found Don Daniels' fiction critique group. I will also mention that there's a nonfiction critique group and a poetry critique group within the SFWA. I was interested because I write contemporary fiction in a fiction critique group. And so that's really the first step. And you can find them online as well as join your local organization. It was so great for me. I just lucked out because I happened upon a group of individuals that I happen to like and also get feedback. Know that critique groups are a give and take situation. So, you read a chapter of someone else's, usually maybe even 3 or 4 people, depending on how much you can get done. And then they read your work, and then you meet and you give each other constructive feedback. And so once you've done that, and that can take, can take a while, depending on how many chapters you have in your book, or how many poems, or how many short stories, or whatever it is that you're writing. But I would highly recommend finding that group, getting comfortable with it, and doing the entire book through a critique group. The second thing that you'll do after you're finished with your critique group and you've gotten all the feedback that you want, you've made a lot of changes, get beta readers. Beta readers are those who are reading, hopefully in your genre, who will give you an objective opinion. I would recommend at least 3 beta readers that will read your entire manuscript from start to finish. But I had maybe 5. They happened to be friends of mine or in my circle, and they were very honest with me because I told them, do not tell me you like this if there's anything about it that you have questions about. I want the honest opinion. And I was lucky because they gave me their honest opinion. You can also find beta readers online. You can pay to have somebody read your book and give you an honest opinion. But get beta readers because they will look through your manuscript. What I look for in a beta review is a pattern. So for example, let's say 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 of my beta readers point out in one particular scene something that was off or something they didn't understand, or maybe it was dialogue that didn't sort of fit. And those are the patterns that I look for in order to make changes or take more attention in a specific scene or dialogue or a plot hole or something maybe that might be missing. I would tell you, it's so great to have other people comment on your work, but remember that you are the author. It's your work. So if there is something that you truly in your heart disagree with, or feel, my vision is best, then I would recommend that you go with your gut feeling and your inner vision, because you are the author and it's your universe that you've created. Okay, so the last thing that you do after you finish with your critique group and your beta readers and you've gone over it ad nauseum, hire a professional editor, spend the money, because they will find things that you will not find. And I can look at the same page 1,000 times and my editor will find something and say, oh, well, you're missing a word here, or, little things, punctuation, this and that. Your critique groups and your beta readers might catch some of those things, but a professional editor is there to do that job for you. So there are professional editors within our association. I know Ricky Dorn is an editor. There are editors you can find online. I have a really good editor that I found who's pretty reasonable, but she's pretty strict on making those changes. But I highly recommend that you do that. Okay, so let's get to marketing. All right, marketing doesn't happen after the book's done. And in the traditional publisher's hands, who has a team of 40 marketers working on your book, if you're lucky, you have that situation. If you are independently publishing, marketing is going to be really important to you. And so I've just posted a few things up here. These are categories that don't at all comprise an entire marketing plan. There are so many things, other things that you can do, but we only have a certain amount of time. So we're going to focus on these things, and then we're going to move into social media, because that's the purpose of this presentation today. But let's talk about marketing, because a domain name is really important. Like before you're even writing or while you're writing, think about what your domain name is going to be. That's what your website's going to be called. Okay. So I bought back in 2013, I bought adelroyce.com. I knew that was going to be my pen name. And I said, yeah, Adele Royce is my name. I'm going to buy the domain out. I did. I knew I wasn't going to build a website yet for years, and I didn't have my manuscript finished, but I bought it out because I wanted to have that for my name. And you want to do it before somebody else does. So you can go in. I'm going to give you guys resources towards the end of the presentation. And also, on a side note, don't worry about taking copious notes on this presentation. Just because I'm going to make this available to the SFWA, both the recording and the presentation, so you can refer back to it. But I'll give you resources in order to find where to buy a domain if you don't know that. It's relatively inexpensive, and you just keep renewing it every couple of years. So important thing is domain name. One note on domains. I always recommend to authors to buy their author name. If your name isn't available because somebody else has the same name, you can add a middle initial, you can add author to the end of it. There are a lot of things you can do with your domain name to make it your own if it's not available. But I always say, buy it right away. Some authors want to buy their book's name. I don't recommend that. it doesn't hurt. You can still buy the domain, but I would never build a website just on the name of the title of your book. Okay, so let's move on to brand. Brand and logo. Brand is basically, it's your image as an author. I mean, I look at it, you know, analogy to your outfit, what you're wearing, what you wear, your fashion sense. Maybe you are very casual and comfortable. Maybe you're, you know, all about high fashion, maybe whatever. But the brand should reflect who you are as an author. So whatever you do in terms of a logo, in terms of colors, the look and feel of your website, what your headshot's going to be, we'll get to that in a second, it should reflect what you're writing. And so I'm going to also give you resources to get a logo designed and to do some other things design-wise that won't cost you a ton of money, because you don't want to hire a really expensive designer if you don't have a big budget for that. If you do, great. But I'll give you some resources to take away on that. A headshot's really important. You should always use the same one. I always recommend hiring a professional photographer. Go in a setting that reflects what you're writing, or do it in colors that reflect who you are. You know, whether it's a modern architectural setting, or it's you write pastoral poems and you want to be filmed or shot in a sort of a garden setting. Whatever it is, it should be who you are as an author. And if you want, you know, have your personal stamp on that. Website we talked about. There are a lot of resources for building websites. We'll get to that, but it's what you need. These are all the things that you should be thinking about as you're working, even from the start, because regardless of whether you get a huge advance and have a ton of people working on your marketing, you care the most about your book. Your book is your baby. So it doesn't hurt to be well-versed in doing some marketing for yourself. We're going to focus on social media because it is the easiest. I won't say it's the easiest thing, but it's free and it's the easiest thing you can do for yourself. Okay, so let's move into social media, the necessary evil. Yeah, I hate to say it. A lot of people don't like social media and they're like, ugh, why do I have to do this? I probably would be in that consideration set myself, but it's part of my job as a marketer to know what's going on and how to market either my clients or myself from a social media standpoint. So you're an author. Which social media platform should I be using? Gosh, there's so many, right? There's a lot going on out in the world with social media. So I always tell authors, pick one and just be very consistent and devoted to that platform. And I'm going to go over the few that I think are important to authors. I threw in a couple that maybe authors you haven't thought of, but are kind of interesting. But again, if you get overwhelmed, pick one platform and just use that one. Okay, so Twitter's the first one I'm going to go over because Twitter is your friend. Whether you've gotten, heard bad things about it or heard this, I don't even know how to use Twitter. This is the platform that I picked when I was first starting out because I didn't want to do a bunch of author social media. And I thought, gosh, Twitter is going to be the easiest one. The one thing I will tell you about Twitter is there's a huge writing community. Literary agents communicate via Twitter. They tweet out what they're looking for. They could be looking for a specific type of manuscript, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or short story collections, poetry, whatever. Agents and publishers tweet, okay? So if you follow them on Twitter, you will see what they're tweeting out. You can see them in their newsfeed. So Twitter is a newsfeed. That's how you should look at it. It's constantly changing, it's updating. Tweets are coming by the droves all day, every day. So use it as a newsfeed. Use it to start a conversation with other authors, with readers. We'll talk about hashtags and all that stuff and how to appeal to that community. But I always tell people to follow others pretty freely. And don't worry about your ratio of followers to those you're following. We're going to go over that a little bit more so it's clear, but it is a very concise method of communication on social media. It's 280 characters is the limit. So you have to be concise. And if you're going to use hashtags, you got to make sure you have enough room to use those and get your message in. I always tell people to be positive on all social media because positivity is contagious, number one. And you want to be kind and helpful. There are those people who go on and are trolls and will say something that or post something and, you just let it roll off your shoulder, block, remove, do whatever you have to do, ignore it, but don't engage in conversations that aren't positive. Okay, so let's say you pick Twitter. I'm using my profile page as an example because this is the primary vehicle that I use on social media for my author profile. So first thing you get is a handle. So I'm Adele Royce, and I got Adele _ Royce. It's probably because it was the only thing available at the time. Again, I started this account probably, March 2013. There you go. It's right there. This up here, you have the option to brand your profile. And that is actually from the homepage of my website. So it has all 3 of my books. It has my logo, the LA skyline, all my colors, my brand. This is my professional headshot that I use for all my social media for everything to do with Adele Royce. So again, it's consistency. So always use the same imagery and the same photos and the same logo, etc., because you want people to keep recognizing you. Okay, short description. I have published hashtag author, series, fiction, short stories, writing community, award-winning blogger, foodie, lover of books, cats, ballet, and rock music, fashion junkie. So that's a lot of, it's a very short snippet, but it tells you about me. It tells me about me as an author, it tells me a little bit about what I'm writing, what I like. So hashtags. Let's talk about those because hashtags are a way that you can correspond and connect with other members of the writing community or people who are searching these particular hashtags. I always, when I tweet, if I'm talking to the writing community, I hashtag it with the writing community because what happens is it'll tag my post and it'll show up in the feed of everybody who is hashtagging writing community, looking for that hashtag. So it's a way of connecting you to other people who are looking for those hashtagged messages, okay? So you're showing up in their newsfeed and they're gonna show up in yours. Always put your link to a website once you have a website. If you don't have a website, it's fine. You can still be posting on social media. We'll talk about content in a second. And here's the whole ratio thing. So if you look down here, I'm following 7,308 people and I have 8,212 followers as of today. So if you are worried about following too many people, because I see this all the time, this is why I'm mentioning it, don't. Because the only people who have, 16, 20 million followers and they're only following 12 people or entities, they're like the president of the United States or a very high profile celebrity or a sports figure or whatever. That's the only way you're going to have that ratio control. And I've had people who are aspiring authors or, they've not published or whatever, and they're like, oh, they'll follow you and then you follow them back and then they unfollow you. It's a game that they play and they're like, oh, my ratio. Don't worry about it because the only way to have a ratio that's disproportionate is to be famous. Okay. So I follow most everybody who follows me unless there's somebody who really doesn't have anything to do with what I'm trying to do, or maybe they're selling something. That's kind of how my rule of thumb. Okay. So let's go into the pinned tweet. Okay. So you see up here, tweets and replies, media. A pinned tweet is important. I'm going to go back to this slide because this is what you see when you go on Twitter and you search me. But right underneath this, where this ends down at the bottom, is my pinned tweet. That's the tweet that you want everybody to see first. not what you tweeted out an hour ago or, you know, what you're tweeting all the time. This one always comes up because this is what I'm focused on. And you can see I posted it on 12/30/21, and it's basically promoting my book series. Right here, these little 3 dots here on the side, that's where you click when after you've tweeted and you see an option to pin your tweet to your profile. You can change this out every day. Some people do. A lot of people do that. I usually stick with one, and you can see I've had 61 people like that tweet and 72 retweets. So a pinned tweet is really important because it stays there however long you want it to, and people will see it when they search you. All right, so let's say you sign up for Twitter and you're like, what am I posting? Now, let's say you don't have any published books, which when I started, I didn't. And I was thinking, what am I going to post? Like, who cares what I have to say? Well, I always tell people start by following, follow other authors, follow Publishers Weekly, follow Writer's Digest, follow the SFWA, follow those entities that are posting things about writing and books, and retweet things. Retweeting is a really simple function. You just hit retweet. You can put quote retweet, and you can put something like, wow, this is an interesting article, hashtag writing community. Because I always hashtag the writing community anytime I'm talking about writing, which is mostly all the time, because that's why I use Twitter. You can post quotes. Let's say there's an important quote that you heard or that you love. You can put that up there. Questions are really cool. Okay, I post questions sometimes and people will go crazy over questions, because you can ask a question about writing. You can ask, you know, how do you make your dialogue authentic? Hashtag writing community. And you'd be surprised at what will hit a nerve with a bunch of authors, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, and they want to tell their story, so they'll respond. So questions are really good. And they also make them about what's going to help you. You know, maybe you really do want to know about dialogue or some other element of writing. Post it, and you'll see how many people will respond. Statements also, if you just want to say something about your writing, you might want to throw in something that's self-serving. We all do that. You may not get a whole lot of engagement, but you've put something out there. There are also such things as GIFs, which are like the little moving memes that you can find in Twitter. There's a whole gallery of them. So if you want to have like a cat waving or somebody typing furiously on a typewriter, those are there. You can post those just for fun, and always hashtag them with something that that's trending. And then you can also post images that are either professional images, hopefully they're rights free, or you can post them from your phone. But I would caution you to just always make sure that your images that you post are professional. Okay, frequency. How often should I be posting on Twitter? Like, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be posting every hour. I'd say post as often as you can, because there's so much clutter. There's so many people posting on Twitter that it's just good to have your name out there. People keep seeing you and they'll start to recognize you. And especially if you're posting things that are interesting, they'll start to look for your posts even and be like, wow, that's cool. I'm going to follow this person and I'm going to help them and get other people to follow them. So it's good to be frequent, but I say that with the caveat, do not be unrealistic. You got to make a commitment. So if you can't post 10 times a day, make a commitment to posting a certain number of times per week, per day, whatever it is, make a commitment to that, put it on your calendar if you have to, and be consistent and be easy on yourself. Don't be like, oh my gosh, I didn't post, you know, just like I said, figure out what you're comfortable with and how much you should be posting, how much time you have to do it, and do that. Here's the last thing, don't post and ghost. And what is that? Let's say that I post something like I post the dialogue question and I get a frenzy. But let's say I post the question about authentic dialogue and I go on with my day and, you know, I'm working and I forget about it. Okay. Let's say I go back 2 days later, I wake up and go, oh, I wonder how I'm doing on Twitter. And I see that there was a frenzy of people commenting and retweeting and liking and all this engagement, well, I'm kind of late to the party at that point. So if I'm like a day later and the momentum has now gone away, that's not good, because you're not going to get that back. So when you post something, make it a habit to check and see what it's doing. And the other thing is, if you're getting crickets on your posts, don't do that. Find the posts that get the most engagement and keep doing those. So that's Twitter. Let's move on to Instagram. A lot of people use Instagram. Instagram is like the opposite of Twitter. It's photography, not words. It's not a news feed, it's photography feed. Think of it as like it's mostly visual. So here, you have the freedom to post an unlimited amount of characters. You can hashtag like 3,000 things or something. That's funny. It's an exaggeration, but you're posting images. So as an author, what are you going to post? You're going to post things that relate to your books, to your writing process, anything that it may be inspirational. You can post quotes. I would recommend, and then always use the hashtags. The one thing about Twitter and Facebook and Instagram is hashtags will come up. So let's say you hashtag writing community or something else. It'll come up how many tweets per hour people are, how it's trending. So let's say like, 40 tweets per hour on hashtag writing community or hashtag authors or whatever it is. Okay. So the hashtags are useful on all of these platforms. So get comfortable with them and make them relevant to what you're talking about. I recommend posting on Instagram once a week, unless you have like a ton of stuff going on that's visual. I'm just going to give you some samples of stuff that I posted. This is the typical dashboard for, professional dashboard. They don't give you a whole lot of branding leeway because that's really in what you're posting. So it's just using my professional headshot, doing a description, and then posting things. Okay, so this is the cover to my first book, Camera Ready. I posted that and something self-serving about my Kirkus review. But I just try to look for things that might look interesting. This over here on the right is the cover of For Position Only, my second book in the series. And that was an ad that we did, a digital ad that sort of this woman's superimposed. I thought that was interesting. So anything you can repurpose that kind of reinforces your brand on Instagram is great. And there are a lot of authors using Instagram. Like I said, I'm just kind of going through these in the order of importance. Okay, here's one that I threw in there because I think it's fun and I think it's also helpful for authors. If you haven't looked at Pinterest, take a look. It's an app you can download on your phone. A lot of people use it I've used it for years, just personally. I only started it up as an author because I thought, gosh, I should be using these for mood boards. So that gets to why Pinterest. Well, Pinterest is a way to do a digital mood board. In the advertising business, this is kind of an old school way to do a mood board where you just pin things or glue them to a board when you're doing an ad campaign, stuff that creates a mood, textures, fonts, images, things. So they were used in the past. We still use them in advertising, but I applied that whole theory to authors and how we can create a digital mood board. And what does it do and why? Why should we take the time to do this? Okay, again, here's my profile, same branding, same headshot. But what these boards do is give you a visual. So let's say you're writing your manuscript and you're thinking about scenes and you're like, I want to write a scene in a place I've been in, Paris, or I want to write a scene using this character who I've cast as my main character or as my antagonist. And it's great to create a board on Pinterest for your book or for a character, just to give you a visual. So you can pull it up at any time and say, gosh, I need some inspiration for this scene. Okay, I pinned these things from Pinterest and I'm going to look at this and it's going to help me sort of organize my visual thoughts about how this scene should roll out. So here's an example. So when you sign up for Pinterest, you can start creating boards. So create boards. I created one for each of my books. I've created boards for characters. And then you pin images to create a mood. And it can be a work in progress just to keep you on brand. You know, what kind of a universe have you created? Is it luxury? Is it, you know, is it retro? Is it historical fiction set in a certain time? All of those images you can find on Pinterest, or you can create your own pins through images that you find online that you can create and pin to a board. Okay, so here's some of my boards. Marissa, I have Marissa's Misadventures. She's one of my characters. She's not a main character. And then I have, of course, the world of Adele Royce, which is just stuff that I've wanted to, you know, that relates to me as an author. Here's what's actually in the board. This one is from Camera Ready. And you can pin anything and everything within Pinterest's gallery. You could just search like, oh, I can search Amanda Seyfried. She's my main character in Camera Ready. And I just want to see her because I'm describing her in a scene. I just need to see her again. I have a character who loves Chagall paintings. I have characters that drink a lot. So there's a couple of drinks there. I've got Los Angeles neighborhoods. Somebody in the book in Camera Ready lives in Brentwood. So these are just things that I've pinned to the board that kind of helped me organize my thoughts. And also they can help you in your writing process. And they can also help you show other people what you're writing and get them interested in your book if you've already published. Okay, so that is Pinterest. YouTube is a whole other animal. It's, are you ready for YouTube? YouTube, I don't use a whole lot because I just don't have a whole lot of content. But some people really like posting videos. You can post videos through other platforms like TikTok. I'm not talking about that one today, but YouTube, I use it for, you know, I would post recorded interviews, book trailers if you had them made. You could do a reading. Some authors are a little squeamish about doing readings or posting their own work online because it's their intellectual property and they are concerned about, you know, making sure they're protecting their intellectual property. So maybe it's a snippet of a poem or a little snippet out of your book and you want to record it on, you know, on Zoom or whatever, and you want to upload it to your YouTube channel, you can do that. So here's an example of a book trailer that I had done, and I'll give you the resource that I had to do it. I'm going to play it. Hopefully everybody can hear. And there's music in the background, but I'll just let you watch it because you probably can't hear the music. Now, this is everything to do with for position only. So much more effective with the music. You can also get voiceover for book trailers, which I'll show you at the end. But we're going to move on to Facebook. I save Facebook for last because most people use Facebook on a personal level. I don't believe a whole lot in Facebook as an author other than to find groups to join. And the reason I say that is that Facebook has to be attached to a person. So me as Madeline Goldman has a personal Facebook account, but my Adele Royce page is separate, but it's still attached to me because you can't just start a page under a pen name or start a business page without it being attached to an actual person's account. So what you'll find is that the only followers that you can invite are those who are your personal friends and family and whoever you keep in touch with on Facebook personally. So most of us don't want to be bothering our friends and family with our promotional messages regarding our books. So the only way to get followers that aren't already in your personal set is to try to find followers outside of that. How do you do that? Well, you can pay Facebook and you can boost posts and you can pray for the best. I know people have increased their followers by doing that. It costs a lot of money if you're not watching yourself. And it's not necessarily anybody who's targeted. You can try to target it through demographics, but is it going to increase your readers? Is it going to be a group that's interested in hearing what you have to say about your books? Not necessarily. You can also pay for Facebook ads, which I've done, which wasn't particularly effective for me personally either. So what I would suggest is finding groups. There are so many groups, including the South Florida Writers Association's group that has like over 1,000 members. You can join those groups and you can promote your books and yourself as an author on those specific book groups. And the way to find them, just search them. There are so many. There are moms who love to read. There's authors for authors promotions. I'm probably getting some of those wrong, but there's a ton of them out there. And you can join them, or you can request to join. They may ask you a question to make sure that you're not a bot and that you're a real person who wants to be a part of a group and participate in a very constructive manner. So that's how I would recommend using Facebook as an author. That is pretty much the end of my presentation. I would love to go into like a million other things, but we don't have time. I really thank everybody for listening. And as promised, I wanted to give you some things. I put in the US Copyright Office because some people don't want to give their work out in beta reader fashion or critique groups until they've registered their manuscript in its most completed form via the Copyright Office. So here's the link there. Again, I'm going to make this deck available to everybody so you'll have it. Design services like for logos, the book trailer that I showed you, illustrators and book covers, try Fiverr.com. It's called Fiverr because there's a lot of services there that are $5. But go on, look at the work, make sure the work is congruent with what you want for your particular project, whether it's a logo, whatever. Look at what they've done, look at their ratings, and you may pay more than $5, but you always get what you pay for. So I find that that's a very inexpensive way to create things design-wise without paying a big agency or somebody who does design for a living. Okay. Website development services we talked about. There's WordPress.com, there's Bluehost, there's GoDaddy, there's Wix, and there's Squarespace. The two that I parenthetically referenced as hosting, those are hosting sites and web building sites. So you can get everything done in one fell swoop. You can get the design and they'll host your site, which means they are in charge of making sure that your site is running properly, that it's not breaking, that it's working, and you pay them usually by the month or the year to host your site. And then they can build it out for you, and they can help you with marketing. A lot of those ones do, or you can choose to do WordPress or Wix or Squarespace and build your own website, depending on your ability there. So that is it. I want to thank you so much for listening today. I'm going to be on live for a Q&A. Here's where to find me, Madeline@madweekmarketing.com. Feel free to email me. You can go to my website, madweekmarketing.com, or if you're interested in seeing what I did for Adele Royce, adelroyce.com. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this time with you, and I look forward to questions.